Hey everybody, it's Greg LaBeouf and welcome to Awaken the Protect Our Within. And today I want to share a concept with you called the Good Samaritan.
So the big question was this: what do good people do when a society's laws and institutions fail to keep them safe from aggression and violence? How do you get through a growing number of angry, hateful, aggressive people and still remain physically, mentally, and emotionally strong and positive? That was the question, and this podcast will give you the answer. My name is Greg LaBeouf and welcome to Awaken the Protector Within.
Okay, so I think everyone's familiar with the term the Good Samaritan and what that means. Now, I was driving the car yesterday and I heard some really sad news that a Good Samaritan by the name of Ian Armstrong here in Edmonton passed away from his injuries. Ian attempted to stop a robbery at a local mall. He is a business owner there, and he looked out and saw a group of young men, one in particular, trying to cut the cord on a cash register from a mall kiosk, one of those little mall kiosks in the center there that was currently unmanned. No one was there. And he went out and tried to stop it. And he grabbed the young gentleman, was trying to hold him or apprehend him and hold him for security or law enforcement, obviously. And the gentleman turned on him and began to assault him. And unfortunately, Mr. Armstrong passed away from his injuries yesterday. Now, there's a lot we could talk about with this. There's a couple things. And I want to talk about the concept of a Good Samaritan in general, not just specific to Mr. Armstrong's case, but there's a couple things I've seen a lot of comments and heard a lot of people talking about lately. And of course, one of the first things is that they wish, people wish law enforcement come out and advise people to not intervene in these situations, to at most, use their camera, record them, get images of the suspects so they could apprehend them later and stuff. And of course, that all makes complete sense. And of course, people are talking about how it's not worth it. He should never have done this and never done that. And, and it's so sad and this. And of course, it's horrific. It's horrific. But here's something that I want to zero in on. I refuse to look at this. It's so easy for us to look at this and think, what has this world come to? Where you've got these young people that are, they're trying to steal a cash register and they would end up taking a man's life over it. And you can look at this and just be overwhelmed by the despair of this and how horrific this situation is and what this has cost Mr. Armstrong and his family and the people that had to witness this in the community. And the price is high. It's too high. But the angle what I choose to do and what I want to share with you is that Good Samaritans are so critically important. And this is what makes it even sadder, because we can't afford to lose people like Ian Armstrong. And you see, the way I look at this is that there is a saying, and the saying goes that evil prevails when good people stand by and do nothing. Now, if we look at this situation, or almost any Good Samaritan situation, I can guarantee you that Mr. Armstrong was not thinking about what this could cost him. He wasn't thinking, oh, this guy might try to take my life, might assault me, and then, you know what I mean? He wasn't thinking of that. What drove him, what compelled him, was a strong sense of right and wrong. He's a business owner within that mall, and he looked out and he saw a fellow business owner about to be robbed. And so what took over in him? A sense of right and wrong. That's it. It was visceral. I guarantee he went out there and said something, told this guy to stop, and went to grab hold of him, to hold him to hold him accountable for what he'd done. He wasn't thinking about the personal cost to himself. He was operating off a sense of right and wrong. And I honor that. That is what we need. Now, you see, listen, I wish there's probably 100 people in that mall that were better suited, more physically capable of being able to defend themselves or protect themselves and apprehend and stop this. And I wish that they were there. I wish I was there. I wish any of those people that were there, so that it didn't have to be Ian Armstrong to do this. But I honor what he did. I honor that. And see, here's the thing that I want to talk about on a bigger scale. It's like, in the history of the world, it is only when good people have stood up and said something and done something and taken actions. That is what stops evil. And it's at this point where we start weighing it out, where we start saying, well, yeah, but that was just a cash register, or that's just property, or that's just money. Let him have it, let him take it. I get that, and I agree with you. At the end of the day, I wish he just would have got the cash register and was gone. I wish that he just would have ran. I wish that he just would have pushed Ian off him and broke free from his grip and just ran. But he didn't. And there's all these situations where we look at it. I remember my wife was driving home one day and saw kids taking rocks and smashing car windows. And she stopped, she pulled over and she got out and she yelled at them, she told them to stop. She went to intervene in that and the kids ran. And so she jumped back in the car and she drove home, which was only a couple blocks away. And 15 minutes later, we got a nice cinder block through our front window. And you say, well, that's just property damage. It didn't cost you anything. No, it didn't. But here's the thing. And trust me, as a husband, when I look at that and say, honey, you stopped and you got out of the car and it's like, was that safe? Was all these things? But the reality is it's right versus wrong. And yes, I want good Samaritans. We have to wake up. This is what our whole movement is about. It's like, listen, there are people out there that you're going to see people doing things that are relatively small, simple things, but they're wrong. And you know what bad people want? Bad people, they depend on fear to stop good people from saying something, from doing something, from taking some sort of an action. And so my wife getting out that day, those kids could have tried to hurt her. But at the end of the day, why did she stop? She didn't think about that. She saw it and said, viscerally, this is wrong. And instead of just driving by and ignoring it like a lot of people do, she stopped. Now, yes, I want people to be smart. I want people to wake up and understand this, that when you do something, when you are that type of person, when you have that strong moral sense of right and wrong, and you cannot just sit by or stand by and watch this happen. When you have that moral obligation within you, when you feel that, you must understand and be aware of the repercussions so that you can take appropriate actions. Go into it seeing it for what it is, not worse than it is, but see it for what it is. And know that these individuals, they could turn on you. They could have a very disproportionate reaction. But at the end of the day, we cannot have our visceral response to these situations. We cannot be sending out this message to good Samaritans and people that have the strong sense of right and wrong that the cost is too high, so do nothing. Because where does that stop? Where does it stop? It's a slippery slope. But I choose not to look at this situation and judge Ian Armstrong and say that he did something wrong, that he never should have done this or he never should have done that. Hindsight's 20/20. But in that moment, I honor what he did and why he did it, because he did it out of a strong sense of right and wrong, out of a sense that he was going to stand up. And he was going to not just watch something that he knew and believed to be wrong. He wasn't just going to sit by and watch that. I wish that somebody else would have been there to help Ian. When that individual began to assault me, I wish there had been somebody else there. I wish one of those other kids that was with that youth that was trying to steal the catch, I wish one of them would have grabbed them. I wish one of them would have stopped their friend. I wish somebody walking by would have been there at the right time, at the right moment to step in and help Ian, not just to record it. Not just to capture it on their phone, but to step in. And I get it. I want people to understand and know that if you don't have the physical skills, that if you don't have the confidence to do that, then stepping in physically is not the right answer for you. That recording and taking notes and calling the police and doing that are just as important. But I want you to also understand that somebody standing around recording this incident from 10 or 15 feet away, you think you're safe? You think he can't walk over there 15 feet? You know how fast somebody can cross 15 feet in anger? And not only grab that phone away from you, but end up, assaulting you. So what distance now? Now we got to back up to 100 plus feet. We got to hide behind our closed doors, lock our doors, and videotape through the safety of bulletproof glass or something like that. Here's another thing with this and why this is so important to talk about this Good Samaritan and the concept of this. Because at the end of the day, it can cost us something. But here's the reality. There's never going to be enough law enforcement. They're never going to be on scene at the right times and at the right moment all the time. They would love to be. Trust me, they would love to be. But it's never going to happen that way. You know who the first responders are? You know who the first people on scene are? The targets, us. Good people that become the targets, become the intended victims of. That is where acts of terror happen. That is where acts of violence happen. That is where right and wrong is witnessed. That is where it's us. You're seeing it in those moments. And in those moments, there's somebody on that X. There's somebody at the ground zero. Just like Ian, he was on that X. He stood up for what he believed, right and wrong. He looked and thought, if that was somebody trying to do that to my store, I would want somebody to say something. He wouldn't want somebody to get hurt. But it's to say something. It's that voice. It's something that tells these people they can't, you can't just do this stuff. And that's where this has to be. So we need Good Samaritans to understand that there is a cost to this. Be prepared for this. See it for what it really is. Be safe. Protect yourself. Understand that. But there's got to be another answer other than allowing the fear that these types of individuals wield. It's one of their greatest tools is the fear. The fear that they're going to do this to you. The fear that they would assault you. The fear that they will hurt you. The fear that they will take your life. The fear that they will hurt your family or whatever it is. The fear. Fear is what stops good people from doing something in these horrible times. And so, it's painful. It's painful. It's painful to think about for Ian's family. It's painful to think about for him. But at the end of the day, it's such honor I feel for him and such pride to know that there's people in this world that have such a strong sense of right or wrong, that are so selfless. He didn't think about himself. He didn't think about himself in that moment. He thought about others. He thought about right versus wrong. And he believed in that so strongly that it drove him to action. It is only with our strongest beliefs that it affects our actions. And so how deeply and how strongly he felt about that is evident in his actions. And I just hope we never lose that. Hope that we never lose that sense of right and wrong, that sense that although it might cost us something, that we have to stand up for what we believe in. That's what I want my daughters to know. I want my daughters to know that what they believe in most strongly and most passionately in this world, that it's worth fighting for, it's worth standing up for. Not just for themselves, and not just when it's convenient, not when it's not going to cost you anything. Now, the last thing I'd want is that I don't want any good people, these people like Ian, and I wouldn't want my daughters to go through something that costs them their lives. But at the end of the day, that's what we have. They have fear. And we have, a strong sense of right and wrong, a strong moral obligation, and not just, for all of us, for my family, for our community, for our country, we have to have a strong moral obligation. And when we see things that aren't right, we have to be prepared to be those responders. We have to be prepared to do something, to say something. And again, I do it in the right way. Be safe. But go into it knowing that there can be this disproportionate wrong. Be prepared. Be safe. Be ready. So we say at the end of all these podcasts, stay safe, stay ready. So I'll leave it at that. Again, I hope that a great majority of you are not looking at this and saying, what's the world come to? Taking a man's life over a cash register with a few dollars in it. Instead, I hope you focus on honoring Ian Armstrong and honoring that profound sense of right and wrong that he had. And not sitting there and judging it after the fact when we know what the response was going to be, but understanding that in that moment, he just believed so deeply in right versus wrong, and he was one of those individuals that stands up, that won't just sit there, that stood up. And I'm honored. The pride I feel for him, he's a hero. And I know the price was too much, and I wish more than anything that he didn't have to pay that price, that somebody else could have been there to help him, to better prepared to help him physically to stop this. But at the end of the day, that's what I want to focus on. Evil prevails when good people stand by and do nothing. All right, everybody, listen, I'll end it there. As always, stay safe, stay ready. Want to awaken your protector within?
If so, then head to awakentheprotectorwithin.ca and get your free Off the X training today.